Okay, let's start with a few announcements, namely that I have to leave at noon today. They changed. I was flying out, and they've changed the flight and made it earlier. So there's nothing to do but to talk as fast as possible. I think we can finish. We're going to finish Mood by. We can finish Mood by noon without, if we don't go back and review, but go on from here. But that means I have to write things on the board that there's be no lecture Tuesday. That's not because of the plane being late today, but a fact. No lecture Tuesday, and no office hours Wednesday. I'll be back for class Thursday. Let's see. So, and for Thursday, we won't be doing all of that very difficult chapter on understanding or section on understanding. I expect to cover just this much. So, since it's very heavy going, read it slowly, and that will be the best preparation. Now, one other announcement. The woman who's writing this story about podcasting and has sort of focused on this class being podcast, it seems, would love to have more feedback. I said this last time, and nobody listening on the podcast anyway sent me any email. She'd also be interested in hearing from you guys, some of you, why you're here and not out listening on the podcasts. And I can write on the board her email address, which won't help the podcast people much, but it'll help you. It's a complicated email address. Michelle.Quinn at LA Times, all one word, LATimes.com. I'll read it. So it's Michelle, Michelle, .Quinn, Quinn, at LA Times, all one lowercase word, .com. Okay, just send her messages if you feel like it. You may find yourself starring in the LA Times. Okay, back to where we were. Yeah. Oh, okay, good. I'm glad somebody asked. She's trying to write an article, but sort of why is the university putting everything that they've got on iTunes? And now, as you may have noticed, just in the Daily Cal of today, I think it is, YouTube. We aren't on YouTube yet because it's only the videos that are on YouTube. But they have already put the lectures also on, what? Something besides iTunes. I can't remember. What else would it be? Anyway, so she's trying to figure out sort of what the university is going to get out of this, and what are the students going to get out of this, and what are the students going to lose out of this. And she's asking me the same thing as what professors are getting out of it and losing. And I think it's a very interesting, hard question. I mean, nobody really knows. And when I've asked the people in the university why they're doing it, the only answer I've got so far is Stanford is doing it. And I think she's trying to go deeper in her report, and you can help her if you respond, and you would be responding to answer you why you are here instead of out listening, why you didn't just leave, as half the class seems, or maybe a third of the class seems to have done, when you could listen outside in this beautiful weather, and that's important for her to know, and the people in charge to know. Okay, so anything else about that? Yeah, then let's go back to the issues around mood. The inness, I think, is very important, but I can't go back over it, not because there's no time, but because I don't know what more to say. So I'll just repeat the sort of mantra that says the right thing, but somehow it's very hard to spell it out. That is, each person has their own disclosing power, but the world they disclose is the same world you disclose. The world I disclose is the same world you disclose, although I disclose it from here, and you disclose it from yonder, and, I mean, I see you, you see me. I disclose it with my for the sake ofs, you disclose it with your for the sake ofs. you're absorbed in coping with the equipment and with others that are in your situation. And all of that means that you are something like an open head turned toward the world from somewhere. That we've had the world, and now we've got the from somewhere. But you've got to be very careful and not think of that as some private representation, not even some sort of Renaissance three-dimensional picture that you've got somewhere inside you or in your brain. Of course, your brain has got something in it, which is, it wouldn't be there if the world wasn't the way it is, and wouldn't be there if it weren't your brain and not from your perspective. But that's irrelevant. We're trying to do phenomenology and ontology and describe this very, very difficult thing that we are a shared, we are somehow individual disclosers disclosing a shared world. And Descartes went way overboard in the direction of the individualness of the individual disclosers, thinking that each of them had their own world, their own private stream of experiences, their own, quote, internal representations. And that's clearly wrong. Heidegger purposely, I think, goes way overboard on the side of world and doesn't even mention this sort of big deal problem that we all seem to have our own experiences, our own moods, our own for the sake ofs. When he's talking about worldhood, he doesn't have to, and he's bending you over backwards to put you in an anti-Cartesian frame of mind, but now he's got to put it all together. And so my slogan is, Dasein is always in the world by way of its situation. It's there. But the traditional view is so strong. I didn't mention last time, though I already had it in mind, that to try to give you an example of how pervasive this Cartesianism is. It isn't just people in artificial intelligence or Cartesian philosophers. My favorite example is Sesame Street. Sesame Street is so proper. I mean, Sesame Street doesn't want to bring in any assumptions that are somehow tied up with anybody's position or class or race or anything else. They just want to describe in the simplest down-to-earth way what the world is like. So you'd think they might be sort of Heideggerians. But if any of you who remember your times watching Sesame Street, you have, help, somebody. Thanks. Okay, you have two kids in Sesame Street and a flower. And this kid sees the flower, and guess what? He gets a representation of the flower in his mind. And then he says, flower. And then, guess what? This kid gets a representation of the flower in his mind. That's all pure Descartes. I mean, the poor kids are being totally brainwashed into the inner sense model of the mind. And one more example closer to home. Have any of you had any courses from Alison Gopnik in the psychology department? She's sort of, we're friends, but intellectually she's the enemy, sort of my nemesis, because her whole research is devoted to asking the question, when do children stop having sort of foolish views about their relation to reality, namely that their open heads turn toward the world, and start understanding what she calls the idea, that all they've got is their own private inner representations of the world. And they invent all kinds of interesting experiments to show and look and see when this switchover takes place. So, for example, you show a kid, this is one of Gopnik's famous experiments, a box of pencils, but it looks like a candy box. And the kid looks at it and looks inside and is disappointed, expected candy, saw the pencils. I forget what age this is. I have no idea. I'm going to just guess around 3. But anyway, then you get another kid the same age coming into the room, and you ask the first kid, what does the kid coming into the room think is in that box? And the answer is pencils. Because from that, the kid hasn't learned yet that he's got his own perspective on the world, and he knows more, and he knows they're pencils, and the other kid seeing the world from its perspective doesn't know that they're pencils and is fooled as the first kid was, thinking there's candy. And now Alison Gopnik thinks, aha, we can just keep giving this test, and at some point we'll find out at what age the kid finally gets it, that it's got its own internal knowledge of the world, each one of them. And what do you say to that? That looks like a solid experiment. Well, what I want to say to it is, what Heidegger would have to say to it is something like, well, what you're studying, Alison Gopnik, is a very interesting thing. It's how the culture brainwashes the people, our culture, the children in it, into giving a certain interpretation to the fact that it's true that different people know different things about the world and different people have different perspectives, that they have a perspective, that you cover up that they're all open to the same world from each of their own perspectives. She sort of congratulates them, I presume, on saying, wow, now you're getting that you really understand the relation of the mind to reality. And I've been wanting, but I never get time to give a seminar with her in which I say, this is interesting work. We have to study how in the world everybody gets brainwashed into this mistaken Cartesian picture of our relation to reality, which the Homerics didn't have, and Augustine didn't have, and it wasn't around till Descartes. Somehow their kids didn't grow up ever with getting the right picture, namely the idea, the internal representation idea. So how do we get our kids to all grow up and believe it? So that if you took them all into a class and asked them questions, you'd get them to say, well, I've got my private experiences and you've got yours. Okay, that's all just background. How hard and how important this is, and how, well, period, for that. Now, let's go on to moods. Moods are global, and we talked about that already. They're like an atmosphere. They're contagious. And it's so important on the subject of moods, which is the first of the being in chapters, that Heidegger is sort of turning the picture upside down. Instead of saying that everybody's got their mood, and out of that somehow is constructed the mood of the one. Remember, he says the one man makes moods. I mean, let's suppose we're all in a frightened of terrorists mood. So out of it, everybody getting their private mood, somehow the public mood is constructed. The mood in the company, I said there that business consultants, I think I said, go around finding out. Did I say there are Heideggerian business consultants? One of them is my PhD of mine. They make literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars going around, among other things, seeing what the mood is in a company like IBM. And when IBM was disgruntled and depressed because they'd missed it with the PC, then they have to try to change the mood and give them an upbeat mood. And maybe in trouble now, but think of the challenge kind of mood. And so they're literally Heideggerian business consultants. And this guy, who's now a senator in Chile and maybe a candidate for president of Chile, wrote his thesis on Heidegger and passed through this business consulting stage, and still has sort of spin-off people who give sort of Heideggerian business consulting courses. But why did I get off onto that? Because the global, there's the global mood of the one, there's the mood of the whole culture, there's the pervasive mood in a party. Remember, we talked about that. And all these moods sort of inside each other are atmospheres in which the whole comes first. That's the ontological claim. And people get taken over in it. I had this argument yesterday with a bunch of mostly graduate students. I guess they were from all over, but mostly new media people who were trying to tell me that of course, it's got to be in each individual, the mood. Where else could it be? And then they construct this sharedness, but that's something called an atmosphere. It's just can be reduced to, that's the crucial thing, the sum of these individual moods. And the answers, I think, from Heidegger's point of view, ought to be not like that. An atmosphere is like a tornado, in which you can't reduce what's going on with the tornado to the activity of all the individual drops. They don't, so to speak, first come around and then add up to a tornado. They get sort of pulled into it and governed by this whole phenomenon of the tornado, in which the drops are doing what they have to do, so to speak, to fill their part in being part of the tornado. But it's top down. The whole is determining, at the party, the atmosphere, if it's a gloomy party, is determining everybody's gloominess. But it's not as if everybody sort of individually came in with their own gloominess and then stuck it all together to give the atmosphere of the party. Another way to say it when Heidegger talks about it is that some mood is always already there. And then you can change it to some other mood, which will then be always already there. But you never come in as an individual from outside with your own inner story and add it up. Go ahead.
Well, that seems really important, but I think there's also a sense in which you can definitely change the mood of the party, rather like breaking something or just telling a really funny joke.
That's right, and it's interesting you should bring that up because Curtis, wherever he is, brought up the fact that Heidegger also says that you are, in effect, you should try to change the mood. Maybe you can and maybe you can't because it has this global quality and it settles in. The more gloomy it gets, the more and more gloomy it gets. But he doesn't say you can't change it. Let me see if I can find it. At the bottom, in the middle of 183, I think. No, that's understanding. No wonder it's not there. It's in the middle of the right-hand side of the page, very middle. It says, in effect, the Dasein is obliged to get control of its mood as much as possible. Well, I can't find it, but it sounds like it's a kind of contradicts the fact that you're always in a mood and the mood is determining you, and that you were, as he says in the middle of 173, delivered over in your being to the mood. It must be after that. Just 175. That's about where I expect to find it. In the middle of the page?
Yeah, right at the top of that paragraph.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Factically, the 136 in the German. Factically, Dasein can, should, and must, through knowledge and will, become master of its moods in certain possible ways of existing, and so forth. That means that you could tell a joke, or you could try to put on different music, or you could go, if you were depressed, and go exercise a lot to hope your endorphins will come and fix you. But then he says, only we must not be misled by this into denying that ontologically mood is a primordial kind of being for Dasein, in which Dasein is disclosed prior to all cognition and volition and beyond their range. So what he wants to say is, yes, there are these special cases, but it's on a background of shared moods, which you can sometimes, but no guarantee, use your willpower or your wits to switch them. Okay, let's go on. So the mood is global, and like familiarity, which is global, and moods and familiarity have a lot in common. They are, remember, the background already of that on the basis of which we make sense of things. That's the familiarity. Now we're adding the moods are the background on the basis of which things matter to us. That's what moods contribute. If it weren't for moods, there wouldn't be anything mattering. So it's when you're in a timorous mood, things matter as frightening, and when you're in a upbeat mood, things matter as opportunities, and so forth. And he's saying that it's this background on 176 at the very bottom, toward the bottom of 137 in German. Dasein's openness to the world, the last sentence of that long paragraph. Dasein's openness to the world is constituted existentially by, then cross out the attunement of state of mind, that all the Germans better say is Dasein's openness to the world is constituted existentially by attunement. So and you have to, I haven't put in the mattering when I've read that yet, so now we have to put in mattering. Where is it? I would have thought I would have put it there, but I guess right. Okay. Yes, good. That's where I want, exactly. So he talks about the threatening character and so forth, and then he says, I guess we have to read it all. But to be affected by the unserviceability, restraint, so and so and so and so of what's ready to hand becomes ontologically possible only insofar as being in as such has been determined existentially beforehand in such a manner that what is encountered within the world can matter to it in this way, that is, in some way, and if it means serviceable or threatening, that way. the fact that this sort of thing can matter to Dasein is grounded in its disposedness. As a disposedness, it has already disclosed the world as something which can be threatened. But then the general claim is at the bottom. The whole world throws up as not only intelligible thanks to familiarity, but mattering thanks to your Befindlichkeit, your sensitivity to the matteringness of things. There isn't any matteringness of things that you're sensitive to sort of with prior to your sensitivity. Having Befindlichkeit just is being in a world in which things matter. And things matter, to say because of your Befindlichkeit is just to say that's how you pick up the way that things matter. Okay, let's see now. And now we have this problem, which I think somebody already brought up last time, and I said at the very end in a hurry how I would think Heidegger would deal with it. But now we have to go back and worry about it. But there's all this business of, well, if I have my mood and you have your mood, and the world is looking gray to me and rosy to you, how can that be? I mean, is the world then really rosy, or was it really gray? And you want to say, well, it can't be both really rosy all over and gray all over. That's a contradiction. So it must be in you that it must be neutral, the world. And it's something you project on it, that it's rosy or gray. And that's what gets you into this view. It starts with Galileo, who is the first to start saying that there's this neutral world out there that has no characteristics of a feeling sort. So his example is the tickle is not in the straw, and the warmth is not in the room, I think, or something. I wrote down what he said, but I don't. Oh yeah, the tickle is not in the straw. The odor is not in the rose, and that's meant to say it's you who project this odor on the rose or this tickle on the straw. The world is neutral. And now we can see why it could be rosy to you and gray to me, because it isn't any color, and each of us can see it as if through some colored glasses, which gives us our personal, private, inner experience. So let me see now where I am. And it's better for science, of course, for Galileo and Descartes and so forth, that science doesn't have to mess with the problem of why the world or how the world looks rosy or how you get this tornado effect where there's an atmosphere that drags people in. All of that is just subjective. That's the word, the general word for it. And it's only when it seems to be something objective that it seems something weird that you can't make any sense of. If you just stick to the phenomena, it's neither subjective nor objective nor weird. It's just what it is. There's one of the things Dasein has is this existential structure, that it lives in a world where there is this total atmosphere of mattering always already in place by the time any person comes around, and also changes with where you go. And that leads to talk of projection. I just did talk of projection. I didn't quote the page because it's the top of 176, which I read last time already. So now we've got this idea, which we're going to have to try to get out of, that each of us sees the world through a filter. That would be the most, the most comprehensible. I mean, projection doesn't seem to mean anything. I haven't got a colored projector where I project rosy color on this neutral world and so forth. But it's somehow, there is a neutral world, and you can have rosy colored glasses, in which case you'll have a rosy inner experience of it, or I'll have my gray glasses and have a gray inner experience of it. My inner world gets colored by some way or another. I just say, see page 390. It's just another page where he happens to say something like this when he's taking up reviewing. It doesn't add much, but it's clear anyway. Middle of 390. It's in German. the middle of page, or the top of page 341. We have emphasized that while moods, of course, are ontically well known to us, they are not recognized in their primordial existential function. They are regarded as fleeting experiences which color, you see, that's the phrase there, besides projection, which color one holds psychical condition. So that's the colored glasses view of mood. And now the question really is, but how do you understand that? If mood isn't neutral, and the world isn't neutral, is a better way to put it, and you project these various colors on, or better yet, you see the world through various colored filters, how are we supposed to understand the fact that we are all somehow in the same world and attuned to the same world, and yet you can be getting a grumpy, dangerous, or whatever sense of its mattering, and somebody else can be getting this opportunity, rosy, upbeat sense of its mattering. How can that happen? Well, now comes my favorite part, because I think we have to figure out how it can happen. Heidegger just cops out. That's such a hard question that Heidegger just tells you he's not going to even try to answer it. I mean, let me get the question clear again. How is it that there can be a shared world which we're all attuned to, and yet this shared world could be colored all over with what seem to be, or show up or matter in what seem to be opposed, contradictory ways, and yet it's not going to be your subjective coloring that makes it. So all these ways somehow have to be in the world if we're really going to, if Befindlichkeit is really going to put us in touch with the world, if our mood is going to pick up what's there, but then what's there? If it isn't neutral, it looks like it's going to be, and I think this is the right way to go, an amazingly complicated rainbow of colors. But I haven't explained that yet. I just want to show you where he sort of says it's not his problem, at the top of 170. It should be his problem. On 131 toward the bottom. Without question, there are unfinished tasks still lying in this field. I should say this is a pretty serious one. What we have hitherto set forth needs to be rounded out in many ways by working out fully the existential a priori of philosophical anthropology and taking a look at it. But this is not the aim of our investigation. Its aim is one of fundamental ontology. Well, that's right, but even fundamental ontology owes you an account of how you can, without making it subjective or projected, or using sort of filters, you can see the world as rosy and I can see the world as gray. I mean, what's the kind of status of the world under those conditions? That's, I think, a problem he has to worry about. And I think he's got the making of an answer. And this now I want to switch to the issue, why does he say that moods are attunements? That's the clue. Yeah.
Just to pick up on that musical metaphor of attunement, just imagine a group of people coming and listening to a symphony. They all come with their different days and their different sort of
training, right.
But that symphony itself, its performance creates its own kind of region where moods become, at least possible, a certain pressure is put on everyone.
Which gives them all a shared mood.
And
yes.
So it has nothing to do, I mean, it's a very complicated environment because of where people are coming from.
Yeah.
But there's a kind of region created.
Okay. I think that's right.
Total that nobody can avoid. You're either sort of
Okay.
it or
Okay, but I thought you were going to go in the direction I want to go, which I'm not opposing what you say, but I want to add a problem within it. But could you, without being insane, sit in the audience where one person is enjoying this performance and thinks that it's just so happy and upbeat and well done, and another person is sitting there listening and thinking, boy, is this a downer, I wish I were home watching TV or something. We still need to explain how it is that you can have such different reactions to the current mood, or without. It always seems easy. Why not? It's just subjective. But you got to resist that. How can you claim that moods tune you in on what is out there and is the case, and yet they tune you in on opposed things? Well, here's my story. Well, you're going to have a story. Tell me. That's good. Okay. Wait. Stop talking. You're one lecture page ahead of me. I mean, just remember what you're saying. What you're saying is something like, well, it's a kind of breakdown case. Everybody else is enjoying the symphony, but I've got there's something wrong with me, and therefore I'm not sharing that. Heidegger has something to say about that in a minute. But you can have an audience of normal people, and they're not sick, and they've all sensitive and so forth. Well, attunement. Let's talk about attunement. Attunement means moods, and let's just look at the place where he introduces attunement, because it's going to turn out to be very interesting and important, I think. So look for on 170. No, not 170. 172. Where? Well, I mean, it's right at the beginning, bang at the very start. So ontologically, we're talking about disposedness is ontically the most familiar and everyday sort of thing, our mood, our being attuned. And then the footnote says, being attuned is musical. That's why I thought Dave was on a track. He's on a track, but it's not this track, I think. What it means then to be attuned is to resonate, in effect, to some particular note. I mean, so tuning forks are attuned, and piano strings in a crowd can pick up a certain pitch because they vibrate to that pitch. Now, if you push that a little, it looks like our relation to the mood in the room, which is an attunement, is that we can be attuned to different aspects of this mood. That is, it can be, I want to blurt this out. In any situation, but let's just take this one, there is plenty of nice things to be attuned to. People sitting there paying attention, not going to sleep or walking out and so forth, and to feel good about. And in the same situation, there's a lot to be disgruntled about. All those empty seats, half the room, people out and listening on their iPods, or maybe worse, not listening at all. I could be in a very unhappy mood about that. So I think what Heidegger thinks is that normally you resonate to some aspect of the situation. The mood doesn't say that the situation has only one, so to speak, be careful of this, but color. Let's put the color back in the world. The situation is a kind of rainbow situation. That's what I thought David was saying about the symphony, and he could have been. I mean, one person could be hearing, wow, is the flute good, and another person could be hearing the violinist is off pitch, and so forth. It's a complicated, a mood is a complicated situation of a whole mixture of possible attunements which various people can tune into. That's what I think Heidegger thinks. Yeah.
Two comments. One is that I'm not sure whether putting it that way would get to the sort of totality dimension of it. But the other thing, the possibility of you can be attuned to a mood but not get swept away by it.
Yes, well.
So that if you're at a party where everyone's happy,
yeah.
You can be attuned to that happiness, but sort of that's precisely what aggravates you because you decide you don't want to be happy.
Well, that's right.
You're still attuned to it.
Well, I think not in Heidegger's sense. I think you're not resonating to it. It's like saying a string in the piano is not attuned to is attuned to middle C, even though it's not resonating to middle C. No, in Heidegger language, I think when you're attuned to it, that just means that aspect of the situation is what matters to you. And I want to say something. And both of these are good points. And the holism, I think, isn't that everybody has to be in the same mood. It's that when you're in any mood, it's the atmosphere, it's the weather, so that everything is disgruntling to the disgruntled person, even though, in fact, everything isn't disgruntling, really, because everything can be, promising to the happy, upbeat person. But if it's a mood, then they sense it as the whole situation is such and such. That's what they're, let me just repeat in a second. Try to get this feeling. That's what they're attuned to. That's what they resonate to. In everything else in the situation, they're blind to. So if I'm in a mood of being happy with the class and they're saying good things and paying attention and I'm saying good things and learning something, then I'm blind to the fact. I just forget. I did it every once in a while, and then I remind myself. I just forget all the empty seats. But if I'm in a bad mood, no matter how smart people are and how wide awake they are, I'm worrying about the people who aren't here. But that's global. I mean, I'm not half attuned to the people who are here and doing well and half attuned to the people who are absent. I think Heidegger's right. The phenomena of mood is that whatever mood you're in, everything is in that mood. Remember, I gave it the example on a sunny day, everything is sunny, every day is outgoing. You can't figure out what it would be to be all muffled up in rain going down your neck and not having time to stop and outside and talk to people. And when it is like that, it's impossible to remember what it was like on a day like this. And that's the way mood is. That's the kind of totality. It doesn't have to be that in the situation everybody's in the same mood. It has to be that everybody is resonating in their own holistic way to a genuine aspect of the situation. See, that's what would keep it from being inner. It's not a private experience. It's not something I could sort of have on my own. It's a total experience of the situation. And it really is, except when something's wrong, like we'll get to, his case, if it doesn't break down, it's really picking up some aspect of the situation and it's making it total. So you pick up on the opportunities in the situation, and then if you're in the upbeat mood, and you pick up in the annoying thing in the situation if you're in the annoyed mood, and they are both really there. That's what I want to keep repeating. The situation really is that. And what it makes it annoying is simply, so to speak, up to a point, you're taking it as annoying. It isn't something the situation has, even if you took Dasein out of the universe. But there's a lot of ways of responding to the objective. I don't know, of course, that word is just, you shouldn't be in there, but I have to put it in there and then take it away. There are lots of different, so to speak, valid ways of responding to the objective mood in the room or the situation, and you each are resonating to one of them, just the way the string in the piano can pick out from all the notes that the symphony is playing one note and resonate to that, only add the fact that it couldn't, and once it does, it's not going to be easy for it to pick out any other being. Okay, somebody started to have a hand up. Tyler, yeah.
I like the spirit of David's movement. It seems to account for the differences, the different perspectives through a temporal distinction, right? In the way that you're moving, is there? So you have like a multiplicity of aspects that are attuned to in different ways. But Dave seems to be taking this temporal move, where he's saying because we're coming into a shared region, having been in different regions, right? That temporal distinction, having come from different places to the same place, accounts for the difference.
Okay. Well, I mean, that could cut two ways. Do you mean that you come from different places, but now you're in a where you're atness, you're in a shared disposedness where you're all tuned the same way, or are you trying to answer the question, how come people are attuned in many different ways, even though they're in the same general situation? I think that's what you're trying to answer. That's orthogonal or something to my question. I mean, there are two questions at least. I mean, Heidegger's brushing them all off. My question is, however you got here, how can different people be picking up and resonating to and having a mood that's different about and picking up different aspects of the situation? And you're telling me, well, they came from different places. I mean, that doesn't help me. I want to know how this situation can be publicly instead of private. And publicly it can be rosy and gray and threatening and soothing and so forth. How could that same situation be all that, which is phenomenologically true, without relapsing into, well, the real situation is neutral and different people are projecting different private stuff on it? And I don't see any answer. Maybe, I mean, the great paper topic, because Heidegger doesn't tell us, but the phenomena is there to consider. I'm saying I think Heidegger's committed to something like you could call the rich reality view. that the world is very rich and complex, and there are all sorts of different ways of holistically resonating to a particular situation. And they're all, and the important thing to say is something like, they're all true. I mean, there is a disgruntling situation in this room right now with all those empty seats. And it is a terrifically happy situation because the people who are here are making a contribution. And that's not something you have to deny. All you have to say is, and some people are resonating to one and some to the other, and somebody like me may be flipping back and forth for a while, though mostly I forget the empty seats. So, yeah. Definitely. We come into a situation.
Somehow or other, in order to attune ourselves to the situation we come into, we all come from different, not just places, but we come in different moods.
That's right.
Because mood doesn't.
That's right. Right. That's right. But and so what? I mean, some of them can be wrong. That is, you'll have to get about if you stick to it. Now let's go on though from where you are to what his point. I mean, if you come into a situation in which everybody is having a good time, and you've been in a bad situation, and you're in a bad mood, there are two possibilities. You're attuned to the really bad aspects of the situation, and there usually really are. Maybe people have been drinking too much, or maybe it's the pastime for them to be home in bed, or who knows what. But I mean, you could be attuned all by yourself to a realistic, disgruntling aspect, resonate to that aspect of the situation. That would be, in my reading, okay. Parties are rich realities, and there's always good things and bad things going on at parties. Wait a second. But you could, and this is where I'm taking up from you and from him, really be some kind of psychopathology, that no matter what goes on in the party, no matter the fact that you came from this other mood, you're just stuck in it, and you bring it to every party you go to. Remember, Heidegger's example is there are some people who just bring in bad moods all the time. It's bad to refer to Heidegger's example because I don't think Heidegger means that as a breakdown, but I mean it as a breakdown. I mean, there are people who are stuck in moods that don't correspond, and this is important now, and I'm going to make a dangerous move. They are in a mood which doesn't correspond, doesn't resonate to, doesn't pick up any aspect of the current situation. Then, because they're just angry, and there's nothing to be angry about, and they're angry in every situation, it must be inner. It must be subjective. It's just their private anger. And oddly enough, I hope you're following me, I want to say right. And Heidegger would say yes. And why is that a typical Heidegger move? Because he's always got to explain the kind of Cartesian intuition. He's going to say always that the Cartesian intuition is a breakdown, but it really can happen. It can really happen where your mood gets to be subjective and private and out of sync with anything that anybody else is resonating to. Now, have I said something that? Oh wait, no, I said to him, that I would put him on hold. You sure? Yeah. You're okay? Okay.
The mood or the situation is always a shared one we come into. Why does Heidegger make it possessive by saying, in every case, it's there? Almost like there is something possessed only by that particular docile.
Why does he say it's the there? I'm not sure I get your question, but I can give an interesting answer anyway to some question. I mean, remember that there are two meanings to the there, and we've talked about that last time. So if the there means that it's where you are, so there I am in the front of the room, and there you are in the back of the room, that's one thing. And the mood is going to tell you that, it's going to reveal your perspective on it, you're resonating, and there's the there we were at the lecture, and the mood's going to reveal that too. That's the sense of the whole. What's the mood in the room? And you got your own slant on the mood in the room, which is this very rich mixture of stuff out of which you resonate to something, some part of it. Are you happy with the breakdown story that I've taken it over? And, well, let me situate it, and then you'll see if you're happy with it. I want to, because I jumped ahead, pushed by, whoa, the fact that we got 5 minutes. So let me jump really ahead. So, yeah, I've done all that. Yes, perfect. So, so we need to account for the Cartesian sense that moods are private and inner. Because I think Heidegger's absolutely right. He will just sound crazy because people will tell you that they were once at a party in which everybody was happy and there was every reason to be happy, and they were just sitting there as angry, and nothing had happened that should make them angry, that they were still in some other situation. They're just sick. They better go to a therapist. That's okay. That's a breakdown. And it's just like the other mind's breakdown. That's what you should see. When it comes to the Cartesian question, how come there's a problem of other minds if we're all intercorporeally picking up on each other's mental states openly, because being with is a very basic way we are with other people? Remember, Heidegger's answer is on 161, and that people hide what they're thinking and have secret motives and so forth. If you, for instance, at the bottom, no, not the bottom, 161. Well, he wants to say, how do we explain, at the bottom of 161, explain the theoretical problem of understanding the psychic life of others? Why should there even be such a problem? And it turns out that people make problems for each other. They have at the bottom of 162 unsociable modes of being with. They're sort of hiding things from each other. It doesn't matter how you spell it out. And now we've got the parallel thing in well, let me see. Yeah, okay, I want to get to the punchline. So he does the parallel thing with mood. He says, or he doesn't. He could. I'm constructing him. I think he should say that just as there really are breakdowns in communication and really a problem of other minds, so moods can really be private. You can have your own phobias. You can find everything frightening and threatening, even though there doesn't seem to be any basis for it at all. And the moral is supposed to be, and that's what I wanted to say before time runs out, the mistake from a Heideggerian point of view, I think, is never, the mistake is to deny the phenomenon that somebody like Descartes was onto, that there can be private, secret things, so that there is a problem of other minds, an ontic problem of other minds. There can be people who are resonating to something which is just not there to resonate, even in the richest world, in the richest party. They got private problems. Now comes the crucial thing. What the philosophical mistake, and it's so amazing how easy it is to make it, is to say, but these breakdown cases reveal what is really there all along, but you didn't notice it. That's what they were telling me yesterday with the people who are trying to make the moods go back into the individuals. They say, yeah, of course, it looks like it's a shared atmosphere, but then there are these people who are all out of touch with it, and they're revealing the fact that really it's a private in everyone, and that it's just a kind of coincidence that they're all fitted together. And the move is a simple move. Just think that the breakdown reveals what was there all along, and you're off into Cartesianism. And all that Heidegger needs to do is to say, at each time you do this to him, yes, of course, there are pathologies in which people have completely private moods. And we have to treat those people. But you mustn't let that convince you that the ontology of moods is that they're private, subjective, projected experiences. The ontology of moods is that they're shared atmospheres which people resonate to, and there can be breakdowns in which they're not resonating to anything. They're just having some debris in their minds. Okay, I have to run out. It's noon, so see you next Thursday.